y'all. It's season 3 of the Be Your Own Kind podcast, and we humbly thank you for tuning in. Be Your Own Kind's mantra is there is never an inopportune time to be yourself. In other words, be you without apologies. In this season, I will be presenting nuggets and interviewing individuals that are creating their lane and rocking it. Be sure to check out the featured businesses in the description box and follow us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and pretty much every platform. Okay, now let's take flight. Well, hello, Damianne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. What about you?
Doing pretty well. I'm excited that you are on my podcast.
Yeah, so nice to talk to you today.
Yes, I remember being on your podcast, Changes Big and Small, and I really enjoyed myself.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, you kind of I don't know, I kind of feel like you unhashed something that I never paid attention to as far as like connecting with people and sort from like my childhood and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that. You know, when you move around a lot, you don't really learn how to connect with people. So I don't know, that's off subject, but I thank you for that episode because that was never brought to my attention until we had that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting how sometimes when you like the information is in there, it's in us, but sometimes we don't unpack it until we get to have a conversation with someone around it, and we're like, wait a minute, yeah, that's kind of interesting, seeing all the pieces put together.
Yeah. So I was like, let me work on that. So you're not only a podcaster, you do a plethora of things. Would you like to let the audience know all that you do?
Sure. So I have a day job where I do customer support, and I'm a team lead there with a small team. And I also have a book club that I do with a bunch of other ladies because with so much going on in 2020 and 2021 and us not being able to get together, we thought that having a book club that meets monthly would be a good way to have interesting conversations. And I am always taking classes. I'm curious in lots of things. I'm kind of starting to get into coaching a bit, mostly with friends and other people who are interested right now. But yeah, and I blog. So I have a bunch of different blogs about technology and travel and living in the world and books.
Yeah, I checked out your blog, and I came across when it was in April of 2020, you wrote something every day.
Yeah.
And I remember the blog that was about the correct way to utilize a to-do list, because you're right. You know, most of us put 6 or more items on our to-do list and then we're overwhelmed and none of it gets completed. But not only do you have to put the items on the list, you might need to schedule when you want to, get those things done, and it's less taxing. So that was
exactly.
Yeah,
and I still consider my calendar to be my best friend. And so with doing so many things, I was just talking to a friend yesterday, and she was saying how she knows this person who seems to have a lot of time but never gets things done on time. And so I was like, yeah, there is this myth, I guess it's real, that if you want something done quickly, you give it to a busy person because they're going to schedule it and they're going to get it done. And I feel like that's me a lot of the time, where if I put it in my calendar, it gets done. And so I use my calendar a lot that way.
Yeah, that was a good tip. I mean, I used to put things in my calendar and was like, oh, snooze, kind of like waking up in the morning. But now it's like, okay, you set this time, you have to do it within this time, and I read somewhere, I don't know the exact technical name for it, but basically there are a type of people that their mind just wander. So that's another reason why they can't get things done. Like, I'll start the task and then I'll start thinking about, man, what I want for dinner tomorrow. Not today, tomorrow. What am I going to do on Sunday and it's Monday, So that takes a lot of time. Then when I snap out of it, 2 hours has passed.
Well, that's a good point. And actually kind of going down the scheduling calendar rabbit hole, basically, sometimes I do the same thing where I put something on my calendar and it doesn't get done. And then I have to investigate, why did this not get done? And especially if it's something that's repeating, maybe I need to remove this off my calendar if I'm going to keep snoozing it or not getting it done. Like, my calendar is not a place where I put things just in case. It's a place where I put things because I really want to do them at that time. And so
Right.
if it's a placeholder that's not getting done, then I need to take that thing out because I don't want my calendar to become a snooze space.
Right. And it defeats the purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's interesting because if some of your listeners have trouble with calendars, I was watching this productivity video this morning, and I'll share the link with you. I don't remember the name of the person who created it, but he was going through all of the different productivity tips. And one of the ones he shared was the thing that has to get done each day. I don't remember what it's called, but you just have one thing that if you did that, if you accomplished it that day, you would consider that you had a successful day. So it's just one thing. So this is my must do. Maybe it's called a must do list.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else is the can do, should do, will do, maybe do, everything else. But it's just that because sometimes I think people can get a bit overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, there's so many things on my to-do list. Well, if you break it down and think, oh, what is the absolute one that I need to get done? Then you can have a sense of accomplishment, which can be very encouraging for the next day.
It is very encouraging. Nothing is more liberating than scratching something off.
Absolutely, yes. I think probably we may be from the same school where you put something down on the list just so that you can cross it off.
Yes. I have the calendar and I have the written planner just so I can have that satisfaction.
Exactly. So yeah, we take our little wins wherever we can get them.
And as I mentioned earlier, you have a podcast entitled Changes Big and Small. What inspired you to start that podcast?
I mostly started the podcast because people kept saying, and in fact, a friend just said this to me last night, and she was like, oh, you're so brave. Like, people tell me this all the time. And I don't think there's anything special or brave about me. I think that all of us has this capability. And so the main reason for starting the podcast was to kind of explore this concept of change, because usually the bravery is related to making change or taking chances. And I think all of us do that in some areas. So let's unpack how do different people explore this area of change and unfamiliar situations to see what we can learn that we can apply in our own lives so that we can actually decide what do we want and go for it and achieve it.
I love that because you're right. We don't all react to change identically. You know, we have our own way. I don't even think we process it the same. I think it's just a personal journey. And it depends on the person because the same thing can happen to 10 different people and most likely they'll all react to it 10 different ways. So.
Exactly. But then all of us are here, right? And all of us are here and we've gone through difficult things. We've gone through unexpected things. So we've had to have some sort of change management. But sometimes we don't realize the patterns. And so kind of like what we were just talking about earlier, where it's, okay, let's unpack that. And then we can actually kind of build that road and see what the journey was, which I really enjoy that whole experience and talking to people and making that discovery with them, getting people to tell their story really.
Yeah. Because I believe I interviewed someone who had wrote a book about her life, and she was hesitant about it at first because she was like, who wants to hear my story? And then when she released the book, so many people were inspired by it. Like, we feel like, you know, life just, you know, kicking us around. But then when we share our experiences with other people, it actually inspires people, you know, and let them know that they're not alone, you know, in what they had to go through, you know, so.
And there's also that element of vulnerability, right? Because early in the podcast, I used to I still spend too much time, but I used to spend so much time editing the podcast, and I would remove a lot of my own stories. Like when I was trying to say, because I was like, nobody wants to listen to stuff about me. They're here to listen to my guests. And the feedback I got again and again was, where are you in this interview? Like, we're listening to a conversation. We want to hear your perspective too. And I realized that I was kind of thinking wrongly about it, that in conversation, there are two sides. It's not just one part of the story. And that's what I didn't know that I learned through podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to be a person where me, when you're supposed to, you know, you're trying to get to learn someone else, but you're right. It's transactional, you know, so.
And then look at Oprah. Like, I mean, so then she gets a bad rap for always connecting everything back to her. Well, one time this happened to me. But so many people love Oprah, so it's a working formula.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just want to relate.
Yes,
It goes
exactly.
back to that whole I'm not the only one that go through this type deal, So I mean, I had to learn that as well, which is odd because my platform is Be Your Own Kind, and I think my sister was like, "Well, how can you talk about individuality when you don't express yours or
Mm.
anything about you?" And I'm like, "Because it's be their own kind, like be your own kind, not my own kind." And then I'm like, "Okay, well maybe I'll share a little bit, maybe I'll share a little bit more." Now I find myself just sharing, So it does take time because I'm not used to talking about myself either. It's just weird.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
it's also like how vulnerable do you want to be? Because I think I try not to self-censor in the podcast, or I try to ask questions that the guest may have to think about, or that even the guest may say, I'm not comfortable talking about that. Like, that's somebody's right to say that, right?
Right.
But I don't want to tread the line of being like, oh, holding myself back from having a real, authentic, interesting conversation because I think I might offend somebody. Not really offend, but I think I might be getting too personal. And
Yeah.
so there's that whole element of vulnerability too, that if I'm asking you to give so much of yourself and to tell us so much about yourself, then maybe it's only fair that I tell you a bit about me as well. So yeah, I think part of building that trust is not always necessary in an interview, but the kind of podcast I have where it's more conversational, then I think it is important for me to show that vulnerability too. It can't just be one-sided.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm more comfortable with it. I think that's why I was so comfortable with your interview. It felt more like a conversation and so welcoming. And so we're talking about change. So you mentioned on your questionnaire that living a life of why not. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that concept has expanded due to the pandemic. People real like kind of getting taken off of their routine. It's just like, man, life is unpredictable. Maybe I should start that business. Maybe I should write that book. I feel like we're in the era of why not because of that. Like we were kind of pushed to that.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your experience like? What transitioned you into that type of thinking?
The big thing for me was that I always used to ask why. I still ask it too much sometimes. In fact, I recently learned that why can be seen as being a bit maybe aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and rather than right, it's kind of closed. And I had never thought about that before. But I think when I used to ask why all the time, I didn't always have answers. And so when you're asking why, you're like, do I make a decision tree? Do I map it all out? Like, what do I do to answer all of these why questions? Like, why go overseas? Why move out? Like all of these big questions of life. And I was like, well, what if I switch it? Because if I think why not, then it's almost like flipping a coin. And the idea of flipping a coin really appeals to me because a lot of decisions that we spend so much time making, either one of them will be fine.
Hmm.
Like I really believe that. I really believe that a lot of the time when we're thinking about a decision, either one of them will be fine. And so why have so much stress and tension when it could be, why not do that? And often the why not, I can't come up with many reasons for the why not.
Hmm.
So one way that I kind of connect the why not to flipping a coin is, for example, I had to decide, I wanted to decide, should I stay in Prague? Should I go back to Canada? Should I go to another country? That's a big decision. Like I'm going to uproot everything and move somewhere else. And I was kind of thinking about this for 8 months, and it was really annoying me because I was like, come on, Damianne, just choose. But there were all of these reasons why I could stay one place or another place. And then I thought, okay, well, let's make this easy. Like, you don't even know if Czech Republic is really an option. So let's apply for permanent residence. Let's see how much Czech you can learn and if you can get permanent residence. If you get it, you'll stay here. Why not try that? And I didn't really have any good reasons not to try it. And so that's what I tried when I got permanent residence. So guess what? Here I am in the Czech Republic still. And like living a good life. And I'm also sure that I could go to Canada and live a good life. But I also feel like this moment, this where I am in the center of Europe and being able to take advantage of building the life with what I have right here, being able to take advantage of it is a great opportunity. So why not?
I love that. I love everything about that. Because with why, you can find so many answers, you know, so many reasons. Fear is basically what all the answers are, just, in different forms. But why not is like, what's the worst that can happen? Will I be hurt? Will I die? No. If the answer is no to both of those, just kind of like go for it. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think when you're asking why not, then you're really saying what are the values that I really have here.
Right.
And so if it's a deal breaker, like if why not is because there's no one that I care about here and community is really important to me, or I feel it is impossible for me to make friends here and community is important to me, that alone tells you that this is not the right place for you, right? So I kind of think about it like it's the veto power. If you can come up with a really big why not, then decision made. Move on to the next thing.
Right. I love that. I love that. Maybe I'll switch that because I know when I'm making decisions, I can think of so many whys. Like, oh, but why? Like, how is this? Da 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 da. But why not? If I switched it, I would rarely have answers for that. I can make a whole list of whys. Yeah, so
But Renita, you're also like a big change person too. Like, I mean, I don't know how much you've shared with your audience about your whole journey too, but like your whole family up and went somewhere, moved to a different place. Whereas a lot of people are like, well, it would be really good if I could move and get a different job and live near my family and stuff. And then they just keep doing what they're doing and not actually explore making any of those changes.
That's true. Me and my husband, I think it's going on 4 years now. We just uprooted out of Chicago, which was from everything I knew. My family, like my mom's side of the family, we moved like 2 hours away. Now, 2 hours don't seem like a long time, but because my mom is there, just sometimes it just seemed like so far away. But we uprooted, and sold everything and started new careers here, and we're doing just fine. And I guess because I moved a lot when I was younger, it was just kind of like I purposed in my mind I wanted to be stable, but moving and starting something new doesn't make you unstable, and I had to learn that. You're just stabilizing yourself somewhere else, but it doesn't mean you're all over the place because you're uprooting yourself and going somewhere else. So once I identified that, it wasn't hard for us to just uproot and move, if that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of the question about what gives you stability, like what's important to you for a sense of stability. And so I talk, and I had a blog post about this, about that I often feel a bit like a tortoise, where I carry my home on my back because it's my sense of comfort. It's my sense of stability. Like the sense of stability is me feeling comfortable where I am. It's not really about the place that I live or the house that I'm in, but it's more about, do I feel like I can make it where I am, wherever I am? And if I have that sense with me, that I can create that safety, whatever safety means to me around myself, regardless of the particular environment, then that's what I call home, where I can be myself as opposed to the specific house or the specific location.
And for me, my husband was home. Like, he was coming with me. It's not like I was doing this alone. We were both giving up everything together. And I feel because we kind of uprooted out of our, I want to call it safety zone. We were kind of forced to grow up a little bit because we had each other to lean more on versus leaning and listening to so many opinions or opposing opinions. We were actually able to grow up and grow together, if that makes sense. So he's become my sense of home, and I believe I've become his sense of home.
Yeah, and everybody needs to define that for themselves. I think
Right.
It's a very interesting question to ask in terms of what's home to you, where is home to you, how do you define home?
Yeah.
And it looks very different for different people.
Yeah, it's all an individual journey. What we all have alike is we're on a journey.
Yep. Whether we want to or not, whether we allow ourselves to choose or just kind of go with the flow,
right?
It's inevitable that we're on that journey.
Exactly. And with that change, you shifted careers as well, correct?
I did. So I was a teacher for 14 years, 15 years, and 2020 hit, and I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, okay, I need to move. And I was like, at some point I thought, okay, I think this is enough. Like I'm not feeling fulfilled in this place anymore. And so what differently can I do? And so I planned for it, and I took a sabbatical, and I took some courses. I did not spend all day watching Netflix as much as I sometimes wanted to. And then I found some things that just made me some money, because even though I'd saved for a sabbatical, it's also really uncomfortable to just see the money in your bank account decreasing and having no plan of when it's going to start increasing again.
Right.
And so I did take some odd jobs to be able to increase my income a bit, to at least pay my rent. And then at some point I was okay, I'm ready to enter the workforce. I know some things that I'm interested in. I kept seeing this one advertisement for a job that I thought looked very interesting, but I kept thinking, I don't think I am actually qualified for this. Maybe I need to prepare. But I kept going to the site because I thought, okay, this is so interesting to me. I could work from home. It's IT, like I would be working in a space that I'm familiar with blogging, a blogging platform. And then it's interesting because there was an Easter egg on the website. And that Easter egg said, "We see you've been here a few times." It was a little bit creepy, but also a little bit great, because it said, "We see you've been here a few times. It looks like you're thinking about applying. Why not just apply?" And I was like, look at that. Why not question?
Right.
Just what I needed. And I thought, actually, what do I have to lose, really? I could apply and I could not get that job. I could not apply and not get that job. But only one of those is going to give me the possibility. And so I applied for it, and I had a trial. I had interviews, I had a trial, and then I got offered the job. And I was like, and I had a plan to prepare for this for 6 months. I could have been waiting 6 months, not even choosing myself, when it was right there. The opportunity was right there, open for me. So
Wow.
that was also a life-changing moment, I think, where sometimes we delay the possibilities for ourselves because we doubt our capabilities, because we think we need to do more preparation.
Right.
And so often you're ready, actually. You just need to start taking action rather than spending more time preparing.
Right. And that goes back to the why now. What's the worst that can happen? I get the job or I don't, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, there are some connected things. Like for some people, it's ego, where it can be very destabilizing to apply for a job and not get it. But the way I looked at it was, you know what, there is a job out there for me,
Right.
and I need to start trying to figure out what that is. And the only way to do that is to go out and make myself available to different positions. So I was happy that I did that.
Yeah, that's exciting. I love that. You know, and you mentioned, you know, sometimes when your plans don't pan out and you don't get that job, you said something so important, the job for me. So if you didn't get that job, it just wasn't aligned, you know, just wasn't in alignment with what needed to happen in your life, you know. So I always take that as, okay, not now. Like I've learned to take no's as not now. You know, because I was one of those people. If you reject me, it's like, oh, I'm just depressed and eating donuts for a week. But no, like, you know, there so many no's have kind of threw me up professionally. Like, okay, what could I have done better in the interview? Because I was not always the best interviewer. You know, and it's just like, okay, you're nervous, you're this, you're that. And I used to do so many practice interviews, to now I'm guessing I'm really good at interviews, and I feel like it's not a failure, it's just a room to grow, a room to learn. You know what I'm saying? And you like were prepping for something for 6 months. Had you applied before that preparation period, you may have not got it because it wasn't time yet. Because sometimes no doesn't mean no right now, it just means delay. Just not right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and actually in my job, there are many people who tried and they didn't get it the first time, and they went and did some more prep work and they applied again. And so there are lots of people that I've met in the company that have applied multiple times before they
Right.
actually got the position. And there is no shame in that, especially if it's something you really want and you keep going for it,
Right.
then that shows a certain level of resilience and capability, which is a very important life skill as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a traveler.
I am a traveler,
50
and that
countries.
means that, yeah, maybe like 52 or something.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. That is
I mean, not quite as
amazing.
who's the lady who's traveled to every country in the world. There's a black lady who's traveled every country in the world. I went to her website the other day, but her name evades me right now. But so yeah, not at that level, but
You
getting
at a
there.
level though, 52 countries.
Well, it's funny because, okay, so every birthday I have decided that every birthday I will add a new country to my list. And so last time I could travel, not last year because that was COVID, but last time I could travel, I went to Switzerland for the first time. And this year, I actually am not going to a new country, but that's because I know I have a trip planned the following month that is going to be a new country. But I am going somewhere that I've always wanted to go. So I'm going to Sardinia, in Italy, and I live in Czech Republic, but I love seafood. Czech Republic is a landlocked country, so the seafood is, well, you can get like maybe 2 different types of fish for the most part here. So I am just looking forward to going for 4 days to Sardinia and just enjoying the seafood. That is my goal. So
nice.
even if it's not a new country, it's definitely a new city and a new experience, and it doesn't matter. I have decided that it's a direct flight, and that was what I was looking for at the moment.
Perfection. So it looks like, I'm pretty sure you might have had some things planned last year, but did it affect you as much because you couldn't travel last year?
Yeah, it was a little bit tough last year, just not being able to travel. Well, the hardest thing was actually I had planned a trip with a friend. I have a really good friend who actually was a teacher at my high school, and she never taught me, but she was the only other Black person in the school for several years. And she was also from the Caribbean, where I'm originally from. And so we kind of bonded, and we've remained, like, she retired early, I moved overseas, but we've remained connected through all the years. And I've invited her to visit me everywhere where I've lived, and it's never really been a reality until Prague, where she said, "Oh, I would love to go on a river cruise and come and visit you in Prague." And I was like, "Okay, I've never been on a cruise. I heard that river cruises aren't turbulent, and so I'm not gonna get seasick, so sure, I'll go on a river cruise with you." So we planned it all out, and we planned it for November 2020. And so you all know what happened in 2020. Needless to, in fact, I just got an email last week reminding me that I have a $200 voucher from the company and that they're open again. And so I should consider going on the river cruise with them. I'll consider it someday.
Yes.
A cruise was never really in my plans, so it'll really have to be with somebody who's really into the cruise for me to do it. But yeah, it was a little bit tough, but I did get to travel a bit in the Czech Republic. So there were some months when the country opened up and allowed the travel. So I took a trip mushrooming with a friend, which was a novelty. Like, I'd never gone mushrooming before. I learned to identify some mushrooms. We got to cook some mushrooms we picked ourselves, so that was nice. I went on some hiking trips. We went on a spa trip in town. That was actually hilarious because we went to this small town in the Czech Republic. Don't remember what it's called, but so my friend and I took the train and we went there. We had to transfer, and when we got there, we thought, oh, we're gonna get a taxi. However, this was countryside. This was basically a train. This train station was like a stop. There was no really train station. Like, calling it a train station is generous. So we got out and we were looking around, and there is one man and one car And there is no indication that this is a place where a taxi ever comes. So my friend speaks Czech, so she speaks to the man in Czech, and he explains that no, there are no taxis in town, and he would really love to give us a ride, except his car is full of books. He was one of a conductor from a train or something, and so he wasn't sure what we should do, but maybe we should try calling the place that we were going to stay. So we had no choice. We called the place, and they were very happy to arrange transportation for us. But guess what? Who was the transportation? The gardener came to pick us up with the car belonging to the receptionist at the hotel. So we had some people to thank for their help on that day. And then the best part is it was a half-board restaurant, so it was breakfast and dinner. And the dinner was from 5 to 7 p.m. And then at 8 p.m. it was lights out because everybody there except us were like at least 70 years old.
Oh. Wow.
So we went to this small, well, anyway, it was beautiful. We went on lovely hikes and we had massages. It was a whole treatment plan vacation package, and it was really affordable because apparently it's tailored towards older people, retired people.
So it was relaxing to say the least.
It was very relaxing. There wasn't anything to do in the evening.
Oh man, I'm just picturing everything you said. Like, oh, good night now. Wait, it's 8 o'clock.
Well, it's funny because one of the features of our package was to go on a hiking tour of the area, and so we got there like 5 minutes late. It was my friend's fault, and so the lady said, "Oh, they've already left without you. We didn't know you were coming." And so she said, "Well, you should go. They're pretty old. You will have no trouble catching up with them." Funny enough, we did not see them. They must have taken a different route. But about 30 minutes later, we met them at one of the spots at one of the lookout stations. Mm-hmm. And it's true that there were much older people than we are. And also the exercises they were doing were like Tai Chi or something, like something really, really slow and really, really, like lots of people had walking sticks and that kind of thing. So we were like, yeah, we see what she meant now. And when we got back, she said, "Did you find them?" And we were like, "No, we didn't see them until later." And she was like, "How is it possible? You are young. How is it possible that you did not find them when you went up?"
That's hilarious. They're like,
so I think we entertained them and they entertained us. So it was fun.
Sounds awesome.
My friend says we should go back there someday.
Most definitely. When you just want life to slow down a little bit.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but yeah, there are lots of, I think one thing that COVID maybe provided for people was an opportunity to travel closer to home and appreciate what's nearby for people who were able to access some things that were nearby.
And that makes sense because I saw a survey where most people in the United States haven't even visited the 50 states, but we're so quick to go to another country. And I'm like, that's interesting. We don't even know what's in our own backyard.
Yeah. Well, and a friend of mine just moved to northern Canada, and I really want to visit her. She moved to the Northwest Territories, and my family's from Ontario, so I've never been that far north. But I keep putting it off for two reasons. One, it's really expensive to fly within Canada. And two, I just think, oh, someday I'll live in Canada again and I'm going to have all the opportunities. But who really knows what's going to happen?
Right. So were you born in Canada? Is that your home country?
I was born in St. Lucia.
Oh, okay.
In the Caribbean. Yeah. And then I moved when I was 12 to Canada.
Okay.
Because my dad was living in Canada and my mom lives in St. Lucia. So, yeah.
Oh, St. Lucia. That sounds beautiful. I know people that have traveled there.
Yes, it's very popular for destination weddings and honeymoons and that kind of thing.
So you grew up in paradise?
That's what people keep saying. And yes, but it's so funny because sometimes you take wherever you grow up for granted. But now when I go back, I try to appreciate it more and just be like, wow, look how beautiful this water is. And I don't like driving the hairpin bends, but they provide beautiful views of the sea sometimes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. So out of all the countries you visited, like what was the most inspirational, like life-changing trip?
I have to say India. And the main reason for that is because I moved to India when I was 23, maybe. That was my first job as a teacher. And I had never lived away from home. I had never traveled on my own. None of that. And there I was, off to India with my 2 suitcases. And the school I worked with there took really good care of the teachers in terms of they arranged housing for you and all of that stuff. So it was maybe an easy introduction to life overseas, but so much opened up for me, even mentally too. Like for the first time in my life, I could sleep in and my family wouldn't wake me up. Growing up with Caribbean parents, you did not get to sleep in on the weekend. And I could order food really cheaply and not always have to cook. And I could travel to so many different places within one country and experience so many different cultures. And I could make friends and I could be responsible for I already was pretty, I guess, strong-minded. Like I was already pretty independent, even though I didn't live on my own before. But it was just, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And yes, I want more of this.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that was really the one that made me imagine a life I never even knew was possible.
Wow. And there's more than life is beyond you know where you grew up pretty much. And
exactly.
Yeah. So if you could describe yourself in one word, this is our staple question, what would it be?
I would use the word curious. I think that this is one of my enduring traits. I have a friend who doesn't like to go to the movies with me and another friend because afterwards we ask each other so many questions to try to dissect the movie. And she's just like, listen to the two of them. Like, do you not have questions about the movie, about the plot? But yes.
So that's you're a discoverer. That makes sense.
Yes. It's interesting because one of my favorite podcasters is actually Jonathan Fields, and he has a book called The Good Life. The Good Life Project, The Good Life Show, something like that. And he has a quiz called the Sparketypes quiz, where you learn your main trait and your helper trait. And I think mine is the explorer and the sage is the helper. So the explorer likes to find things out and the sage likes to share that information with other people. And I'm like, look at that. It seems I found the right fields and interests for these two things.
Yeah, and you're not a hoarder of information because you're always, like I said, I've checked out your blog, you're always spreading information. You know?
Actually, sometimes I think my friends would like me to share less, if anything. Like my tagline is like, one time on a podcast, I heard.
You just mentioned something about coffee. Did you know?
And by the way, I learned about it on a podcast.
Well, I feel like that's what keeps us youthful. I can't get it out. Youthful. You know, learning new things and keeping up with, you know, the trends, and sometimes veering off from the trends, because I feel like sometimes the trends distract us from some really cool things. You know, so I found myself kind of reading off like magazines that I never would have read before, or literature I would never paid attention to because it expands my thinking. And this is a superficial way as to why I started it, but I started playing Jeopardy. And I didn't know any of the answers.
That is a humbling experience.
And like, okay, I need to read and learn a little bit much because Jeopardy was killing my ego.
It's like when you go to trivia night. My school used to have trivia night, and it was terrible because I know a lot of useless information, but apparently not the trivia helpful useless information.
Oh no. Like if it's Frasier or The Office, yeah, I'm down for those shows. But Jeopardy wasn't asking any of those questions. So I feel like you would shine in the game of Jeopardy.
I don't know, maybe, but like for example, when I watch Jeopardy, then there's always the sports, and I'm like, I don't know, and then there's always the pop culture section that I'm just like, I even listen to podcasts about pop culture, and then I have to ask my sisters to help me decode what they're talking about.
I may do okay with the pop culture because I try to keep up with that stuff, but sports, no, I don't know what season. I guess it's football season right now, but I only know that because Hulu was like, it's football season, you want to watch football? But beyond that, I don't know sports.
Yeah, I only know different seasons because of my nephews, because they love playing different things, and so they're always playing something or another. So yeah, my dad was telling me he went to a football game for one of my nephews last weekend, so it must be football season, but that's about all I know.
Right, social cues help me, but for the Olympics, I did like the synchronized swimming. That was my favorite one, not the run track and all of that. I'm like, how many hours? This is what I wonder. Did it take them to be so in sync, like it's one person?
It is beautiful, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, but how many hours did they practice this? Like precision at its finest.
Okay, I'll tell you a secret, not about synchronized swimming, but one day of my life I want it to be a musical. And I want to just be walking through life and for people to like burst into synchronized dance.
So I have a theme song in my head, like Staying Alive by the Bee Gees when I'm in a really good mood and walking down the street.
Oh, mine is Jill Scott, Living My Life Like It's Golden. Living My Life Like It's Golden.
Just wake
it's
up
my strut.
I love that. Taking back my freedom. Yeah. So that would be nice. I like the musical. I like musicals, period. Like, what's your favorite musical?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I haven't seen a lot of musicals, but I always say that my favorite one is the first show that I saw on Broadway. And it's not incredible, and it was Cinderella, but I still talk about it. I took my niece to see Cinderella, and it was just so magical. Like when she turns into a princess, like when the dress magic happens, I'm like, I can't figure it out. How did the beautiful dress happen? I don't know. And I just kept talking about it to my sister and my niece, and neither of them were as taken as me. But I was just blown away by the magic. I've also seen Hamilton, which everybody talks about, but I still have to say that ball, like changing the dress from rags to the princess dress, that is my favorite musical moment. Yeah.
It's magical because it's not on screen. It's like happening right before you.
Yes, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, that's how it was with Beauty and the Beast. That was my first Broadway play. And the little, have you seen Beauty and the Beast?
Mm-hmm.
So the rose, that's counting his life pretty much. It's just floating. And I'm like, how did that even happen? And then at the end, when he transitions from the beast back to the prince, it's all this stuff. And I'm like, and I was a kid, I'm like, this is amazing.
And it's so nice because like one thing that I want to be better about as an adult is savoring the magic, enjoying the magic, recognizing the magic. And I don't think I do that enough, but I think musicals do that for me.
Yeah, most definitely.
Even just watching Hamilton, like I don't really know any, like I'm not American, I don't care about any of that stuff. But what I loved about Hamilton was, I was saying to my friend, I don't even know, I can't tell who these people are. Like everybody just looks brown in the cast. I don't really know what's happened. Like I'm so, like everybody just looks like they could be one big family. I'm so overcome.
I still haven't seen Hamilton. I've heard awesome things about it, but I still have not seen it.
A friend and I went in London, and it actually was much cheaper than what a lot of my friends paid in New York and stuff. But we happened to be meeting in London, and the tickets came out, and we happened to find a good price, and we're like, okay, we're going to Hamilton.
Nice. That's the only way I would have made it, because you're right, the tickets are very expensive over here.
Yeah. Yeah, when my friend told me how much she paid, I was like, have fun. Have that much fun.
I think Wicked was my favorite one, though. Have you seen Wicked?
I haven't seen Wicked in person.
Yeah, that was amazing. I wish
The one Sorry, go ahead.
I said I wished I would have saw Rent in Broadway. Yeah, I saw the movie.
I saw Rent, but like just a local production in Prague, and they always add little funny things to the shows they do. They always make it a bit darker than it's supposed to be. So
it's already dark.
Every show I've watched there, at some point, I don't know, some sort of creature with a tail happens to show up, and I'm just like, is this supposed to be here? I don't understand. Yep.
Nice. Well, I mean, it would be nice. The way technology is going, we might actually get that musical moment on the street. You never know.
I know. I've told all my sisters, so somebody could make this happen for me.
That could be a birthday present.
I've been sitting this idea.
You just wake up on your birthday and everyone's just like,
oh my
goodness. Sing all day.
Yeah.
Nice. So are there any upcoming things that you're doing?
Well, I've been taking a break from the podcast.
Okay.
So I am about to start season 3 next month. And actually the focus of that season is on relationships. So if anybody who's listening is an expert on relationships or want to discuss relationships, reach out to me, contact@changesbigandsmall.com. And I actually just decided today that I'm going to start a new podcast about books, because I got a reader from one of my blogs get in touch with me about an alternate ending to one of the books that I blogged about, and I'm like, I love that. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to do that.
Love it. You have a name for it yet?
I don't know yet. I'm also taking recommendations, but
Nice.
So my first brainstorm was reading Black and Brown, but then I was like, okay, that's kind of excluding all the shades, but I want it to be people of color. And then my cousin suggested reading Us, and I like that, but it's a premium domain, so somebody wants to sell it for a lot of money. So I still need to brainstorm. So I'm just gonna let it sit for a little while and see what else comes.
It'll flow to you.
Yeah. It's going to be a couple of weeks before I have that first interview anyway, so I have a little bit of time, no urgency yet.
Okay, cool. And
maybe I'll just call it Damianne Reads.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I actually like that one. You like it?
See.
And you've already...
that could work. Just have to let it sit for a while.
Okay, let it marinate. So I know you just said your website, but where else can we find you?
Actually, I just changed it because I was having a hard time finding the same username everywhere. And so I just changed all of my usernames this morning to Miss Damianne, MSDAMIANNE. So Miss Damianne, from my teaching days when my students would call me Miss Damianne. So that's who I am now. And you can go to thepresident.net, which is my main website that has links to everything else. So it'll have links to the podcast, Changes Big and Small. It will have links to my other book, my book blog, spoiltheending.com. You'll have link to Journey with Technology, which is more for teachers about using technology in their classes. And then there's also Presidential Tech, which is more about technology for everyday people. Yeah, and you'll see everything that everywhere I am on social media and everywhere else. And so say hi.
And it is a treat, and it's a plethora of information.
Yes, yeah, I was doing some reels on Instagram with changes big and small for a while, and then I got a little bit tired. But today I was feeling a bit inspired. But I was out, and I thought, I don't know if I really want to do it right here, right now, wearing my mask. But then I got home and I didn't feel like it anymore. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow there'll be a new reel. And then I even have an idea about it. Yes. Yeah, stay tuned. Come check me. Check Changes big and small tomorrow on Instagram to see what my new reel's about.
I'll be there. Well, Damianne. As always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I thank you for having me, and a guest on your podcast, and I thank you for being a guest on mine. It's truly an honor.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. You made me laugh, and it's after 9 p.m. In the evening here, which sometimes it's harder to get me laughing. So well done, you, and thank you.
And listeners, I hope that you've learned something, you've been inspired, if just to travel, and to change your perspective from why to why not, because that's such a empowering flip of perspective. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to be your own kind and to be kind to each other. Bye.